Hi everybody, it's the CCJT Amateur Hour Production Values Coach and Ty. Over there is CC.
And over there is JT. And
We've
I think
done
you can speak up a little bit.
Yeah, okay. Can I speak up a little bit? Are we the only ones in the hotel?
It's a big room.
It's a big freaking room. Okay.
Those ceilings, I think, are 16 feet tall.
Yeah, we've done some podcasts in some interesting places. We've done it. We've done it in foreign lands. We've done it from like Lake Tahoe.
Yep.
But we are doing a bonus podcast this week from Virginia City, in one of the most haunted places in Virginia City.
And we are talking about Virginia City, Nevada, not right. Virginia City, Montana.
Yeah. And so we've done, we did a walking tour, a self-walking tour.
Yes.
And we had a really delicious dinner tonight.
Oh my gosh, it was amazing.
Where was that, Delta Queen?
The Delta Saloon.
Delta
no, we're
Saloon.
in the Silver Queen Hotel.
Yeah, we're in the Silver Queen.
Yes, but the dinner was at the Delta Saloon. Their California chicken, I think it was.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that sandwich was amazing.
So, to give you an idea where we are, because if you're not familiar, so Virginia City is at about 6,000 some odd feet above sea level in the hills in Storey County, Nevada. Virginia City basically created Nevada.
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes. It was the mining of
the Comstock Lode.
of the silver, lots of silver, that drew people like Mark Twain to this area to try their luck. And so not very far from below where we're sitting right now is a honeycombed mountain.
Yeah.
Full of fallen timbers, broken tunnels, and God knows what else. Use your imagination.
Yep.
And to accentuate the atmosphere is we are in the Silver Queen, like you said, Silver Queen Hotel, which is right smack dab in the middle of Virginia City on C Street.
Yes.
Which is the main drag through here. And it's January 8th.
Yep.
And it's cold, cold, cold.
Yes, it's cold. We have a baseboard heater here, but it's not really heating the room because
not at all, because the ceilings are
16-foot ceilings.
But if we want to get warm, we have a bathtub. We have a bathtub.
Nice clawfoot tub too.
Yeah, we have a bathtub.
We'll probably post a picture of the bathtub
in our room. The camera right now is perched on our bed. So, and you are pretty much seeing all of the room in a snapshot, because there is the Silver Queen.
Yes.
Works hard to capture the essence of the time. So it does have Wi-Fi.
Yes.
It does have. We haven't tested whether or not there's warm water, but we know there's water.
Yes.
And then the list drops off really fast after that.
No elevator. We will post a picture of the staircase that we came up. So there's no elevator. There are no ice machines. We'd have to go to the saloon downstairs, which is closed for the night. And there is no TV here.
Yeah.
So we're somewhat roughing it. It's obviously we have electricity, but it's bare bones. But we were going for the ambiance.
We're going for the ambiance, and the reason for it is, and we have, as we explained in our previous podcast, is CC is writing a very specific book about this era, about around 1875. And so to do that, we wanted to come here and pick up some ambiance, and most of the ambiance is, oh my god.
It's a little spooky.
It's a little spooky.
We have massive windows over here that look out across the 100-mile view.
And these curtains are actually amazing. If you saw the Carol Burnett episode where they did what was it?
Went with the wind.
Yeah, and those big humongous curtains, that's actually
the curtain
those
rod.
They do look like that.
We can post a picture of the curtains too, because if you're familiar with that Carol Burnett skit, it does look, it's almost even, I think it's a lighter shade, but I think hers were a dark green.
Yeah,
these
so
are kind of pale.
we'll post that side, on there.
Yep.
And to give you a perspective, of course, as we said before, I'm a rather tall fellow, but man, these are just
way up there.
Way up there.
Even the ceiling fan is way up there. This is wild. And there is a floor above us too.
I'm tickled by the bathtub.
Cast iron.
Cast iron bathtub. And so this is what writers go through to deliver art to you, as we try to, we go out and we try to immerse ourselves in the time. And so if you've ever been to Virginia City, or if you have, it's complex. It's complex. It's right there smack dab against a mountain. And as I said, below our feet, it's honeycombed. And it's funny, I was thinking about this while we were eating dinner, that right now the cold just, seeps into everything. But if you go down, not too far in the mines below us, it gets really, really hot. So it's like, you're going from one level of hell to another level of hell. So I got so much respect and so much,
sympathy for the miners.
Miners, it's just amazing that they had to go through. But I've talked enough. I've talked a lot. This is your book. This is your ambience. This is your.
He's a little nervous.
I'm outside my comfort zone every time. I'm a lot more relaxed at home. But
Yep.
this is, this is really, I say this is all about you.
It's true.
So
This is my fault.
Yeah. Actually, it was my idea, though, wasn't it?
It was your idea. Well, initially you were suggesting I do this by myself, and now that I'm seeing the room, staying here by myself would have been very freaky.
Yeah. So, but seriously, what are some of the things that you've seen, either from this room or from the saloons downstairs? We went to two.
Yes.
Or from the walk from here to the graveyard.
Way down there.
Way over there, and
Yep.
then we saw the sunset. So what is some of the ambience?
So part of the reason I'm here is we've been to Virginia City before. We've never spent the night. And I wanted to refresh my memory because it's been a little while since we've come up here. We don't normally come up during the tourist season because it's very busy up here.
Mm-hmm.
And even in December, they do Christmas on the Comstock. So at that time, it's just really very difficult to find parking or anything up here. So we came up in the off season, which is coincidentally the time period in which my book is set, January and February. So it's right after the holiday season. It is a dual timeline book. So there will be modern day. There's a couple in the modern day, but there are historic elements included because of the ghost storyline, because there is a Virginia City ghost storyline here. And it does relate to the Great Fire of 1875. So according to what we've seen, this hotel was built in 1876 because a lot of Virginia City burned in the big fire. And at one point, they actually dynamited the church to the southeast of us. St. Mary's in the Mountains, beautiful church. But part of their way of stopping the fire, they had dynamite for the mines. So I believe they dynamited the church to stop the progress of the fire at that point. But a lot of Virginia City burned at that time. About 30,000 people were living here in 1875. Many of them were miners. And as far as I can tell from my research, I was looking at articles on Chronicling America, which is a Library of Congress site that puts up newspapers, historic newspapers. And as far as I saw, not a lot of people died in the fire. I don't know if that is actually true.
Well, it's, statistics from that time, because we don't know how many, for instance, we don't know how many miners went down and did not come up.
Right. So we don't know how many people for sure died in the fire because of so many things going on. Because as you said, there was probably a shift of miners down in the mines at the time that the fire broke out. It was actually something like 5 in the morning on October 27th. I believe, 1875. So I have done some research into this. There will be historic elements included in the book, but we are here for the ambiance.
And so my question is,
Yes.
Thank you for the history lesson. But what if you, but that's important because it helps frame what you've taken away from this. What have you felt? What have you seen?
So the history of it is part of the ambiance that I'm looking for because these buildings are so old that the feeling of the building, the sound of the wind, because Nevada is very windy, usually it comes up in the afternoon here, so it's the sound of the wind against the buildings, the floors creaking. JT just commented that this floor is definitely not even, and there is a hotel across the street where we can see it's distinctly leaning to one side. So those types of elements, looking at how the buildings look, how they feel, walking in, and as I said, we'll probably post a photo of the staircase that we took when we first came into the building. That's a feeling. And for people who are interested in ghosts and those kind of paranormal shows, Ghost Hunter, I'm not sure if Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, I think, filmed maybe in this hotel. They have done paranormal research in here, and that also feeds into the story that I'm writing. So they have pictures downstairs of people from the show talking about that they came here. So we're spending the night to get the feeling of what it's like to be in this haunted hotel. And I'm sorry if anybody's here and air quotes offended them.
So talk about for, like one really significant thing that we noticed here is as we were walking to the graveyard, we were basically trying to keep up with the sun.
Yes. So it was around 3:15 this afternoon, and in Nevada, depending on where you're located near hills, because Nevada is basin and range, up against Mount Davidson right here, the sun was going behind the hill. It is to the southwest right now at this basically in the afternoon, it's to the southwest. So it didn't go down quite as early as it might if it was directly west, but around 3:15, there were already shadows coming down to C Street, which is the main street in front of us. So that was part of what I was looking for, is when would it start getting dark? In the morning, we'll see when the sunrise hits, because there is an expanse to the east of us and gorgeous view, but we'll see exactly when that sunrise starts to hit the windows, because I'm sure it'll wake me up.
Oh, and for clarification, it's the sun will actually rays come up earlier than what we're used to, because it is such a long, it's called a 100-mile view, but because, you can see way to the east, way to the east.
Very expansive view.
So it's going to get probably lighter here than we're used to, so that's going to be something. So talk a little bit about, I don't know if tragedy is the right word, because, life is as important as death, how we handle each. But we were in a graveyard.
Yes.
And we were seeing these people that have struggled, and we were seeing obviously many, I don't want to say simultaneous dates, but we were seeing,
There were actually a variety of dates. The most recent one we saw was 2020.
But before then we were seeing people that passed in the 19th century whose lives were, from 18 something to 18 something.
Yes.
So how would something like that, and probably none of them were probably natives, because
No.
So they had to travel here, which is an essential part of your book.
Yes.
Is the travel from them to here. So how are you going to handle that? I'm not sure how to frame that as maybe a better way.
Well, it's, as I mentioned, there were 30,000 people in Virginia City at the height of the boom, around 1875. At that time, the Comstock was actually starting to peter out, but people had come here from, there were Cornish miners from England, there were people from Ireland, there were definitely people from Wales, obviously the Chinese who had come over and helped to build the railroad. The Irish did as well. And the railroad was completed around 1869, I believe. So at that point, they would have needed more work once the railroad was completed. So some of them came to Virginia City. There was a very large Chinese population here, and they did things, according to the census, they were like the laundry services and things like that. So in the historic timeline, to answer your point, knowing how they got here. So I mentioned at one point that someone got here, he worked his way across the country with the railroad. And that kind of goes with, if you ever saw the movie Far and Away with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman, that's one of the things he does, is he crosses the country by working on the railroad. A lot of the people actually were 49ers that went to California. They were from other countries, but they went to California during the big boom, the gold rush of 1849. And when that played out, they came back over the hill to the Comstock Lode. So that factors into the story as well. So it is a lot of people coming together from a lot of different places. And it was advertised as a land of opportunity. And as you mentioned before, going down in the mines, obviously people were hoping to make a lot of money, but that wasn't always the case, because the miners were working for the big bosses.
Yeah, the bosses that never probably went in the mines.
No.
And so to give a perspective, you said at the height of its heyday, heyday period, you said it was 30,000.
Yep.
Right now, as of 2022, the population of Virginia City, the official population, is 904.
Yep.
904. So it's shrunk quite a bit.
Yes.
And which is funny because we will be posting pictures that we took from the graveyard of the numerous buildings that are in Virginia City, and it's like you think 900 people. It seems like there would be more than that, but It takes a special soul in 1876 and in 2025, either way, to want to live up here because it is up here. It is remote.
Yes.
This is propane land. Everything is on propane.
Yep.
So if you, well, I'm sure not everything because we have a baseboard heater, but.
Yes, but it's, at the time of the boom, some people were living in what they called cribs, which were just rough little structures. They would be probably the size of maybe a big shipping crate or something. And they were just building things with cast off lumber because there aren't a lot of trees here. And a lot of the trees that they got to do the square set timbers in the mines came from Lake Tahoe.
Right. So
they had to flume them down to Carson City, and then they had to be brought up here. As you mentioned earlier, we were talking about there is Geiger grade to the north of us that now goes to Reno, but at that time in 1875 that didn't exist. It would have been jumbo grade, which went to Washoe City in Washoe Valley, and that, you know, knowing the nuances of that history, that they wouldn't be going in that direction, they would be going in that direction, and how they team it up on a wagon. And
it's not like you could just, you know, pop over because because there's a lot of steep.
Very steep. The drive up here is interesting.
Yeah, it is. We'll go into more detail. I think actually we did go into quite a bit of detail for this podcast, and we'll continue to talk about it this weekend when we get home. But if you're going to take away one or two things from being here, and, you know, from being immersed in this as we are in this room, this, you know, extremely hot. Okay. But it is outside our comfort zone.
Yes, very much so.
What is triggering you the most outside your comfort zone right now?
Well, you mentioned the cold. It does feel kind of bone chilling. It's not frigid outside, but it's cold enough that definitely you can see we're wearing sweaters and we're both cold in the room. There is definitely a draft coming through these big windows. They've got to be like
we'll be closing the curtains here in a few minutes.
I don't know that we can.
Yeah, you can. I can see we can.
But those windows have got to be like 8 feet tall.
Yeah.
And they're glass, and they're the.
So the cold, it's like I wrote earlier. The cold just
seeps into your bones.
Just seems to get in there, so you're always going to be cold. What other thing you think is triggering you? Is it just the kind of the echo in the way that we talk, and you knowing that how many, I don't want to say spirits, but how many souls have lived in this place?
Yes, for sure. Because when we went to Europe, I felt this as well, that you can feel the presence of the people who came before you, whether or not that's supernatural or it's just, you know, mental.
Let's acknowledge it for what it could be.
Right.
You could be actually feeling it. You could be feeling it, or it could be, X number of years of reading these kind of books and having an imagination. So let's respect all of that.
Yes. And I'm not saying I believe one way or another. I'm not denying anybody who has had experiences or anything, but there is definitely a strong feeling of the people who have come before you, of the history. And that's one of the reasons I'm so fascinated with the history, is knowing those little details of what they dealt with at the time.
Right. It's all kind of...
It all ties together, and definitely the layout of this hotel. So our room is on the front of the building at the end of a hallway, and we can post a picture of that because I took a picture of the doorways as well, because they're basically... There's a very small triangle at the end of the hallway that is kind of creepy.
Yeah.
Little Stephen King.
Yeah. So it's kind of overland hotel kind of sense here.
Definitely a very creepy vibe, and that's kind of what I'm going for, because our house is not creepy.
Yeah,
it's old, but yes.
You know, but we're used to that kind of creepiness.
But you're right.
Things happen in our house, but we're used to that.
And as you mentioned, we're outside of our comfort zone, so I'm definitely feeling that, because the saloon where we checked in is closed, and we're used to, you know, we don't know who's on site for this, you know. Now that I mention it, there's no phone in the room either.
No, there's no phone. There's no way to contact the room.
Yeah, we don't have anything to...
We don't have nothing, man.
We're kind of cut off here, and that's the ambiance that we were going for.
There's nothing. And the internet keeps bopping in and out, so the internet's not very reliable either.
So we could have stayed at a more modern hotel, and there is a discussion of that in my book also, but we wanted to go more for that historic ambiance.
Yeah, we're idiots.
It's an adventure. Okay. We have to have adventures, or else, you know, things get boring, and that's what we're doing.
We're going to go ahead and wrap this up, and this is the night. We're going to post this Thursday morning when we get home, and then we'll have a regular podcast on Sunday, and we'll talk a little bit more about it, what we took away, and what our feelings were, and what our observations were after we put a little bit of distance between here and Virginia, between here and our house, which is like 10-15 miles as the crow flies.
Yeah, it's less than a half-hour drive, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
It's not that far.
But it is kind of fun, and I'm glad we did this because it knocks us out of our comfort zone, makes us appreciate more of what we have, but also it gets us out there in the world and have check things out.
And in January we don't normally travel, so staying somewhere outside of our house in January, this time last year I was still working.
Yeah.
So this is definitely a different experience.
It's definitely a different experience.
Because this is the middle of the week.
Yeah, it's Wednesday night here. Wednesday, January 8th, like I said. Okay, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up because we're cold.
Time to get it into toasty clothing.
Yeah, we're going to get into clothes. So if you have any questions or anything when you see this podcast from Virginia City, we'll probably be home by the time that you have those questions. But we are we're nearly, boots on the ground in Virginia City around the year, so we can find an answer for you. But until then, anything else you want to talk about real quick?
I am probably going to do my own separate video this weekend on Saturday. I may talk a little bit more about the experience here, add some of the photos that I took, and may take some video tomorrow. We didn't do that today because it was already getting a bit gloomy. So there will be probably, aside from our normal podcast on Sunday, I should be doing a separate video about this experience on Saturday and talk a little bit more about what I'm learning.
Okay, sounds good, and hopefully she'll find some way to incorporate what we're learning here, so
into my book.
But yeah, it should be fun. Okay, so until then, sitting over there is CC,
and over there is JT.
We hope that you enjoyed our little look into ancient Nevada history, ancient for Nevada anyway, 1876, and we will catch you later. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.